High above the sprawling neon metropolis, a specialized transport van tears through the night, while news reports confirm another disastrous raid failure, sparking a wildfire of toxic hate across social media, where bitter hunters argue about their dwindling paychecks and wonder if these green rookies can actually deliver, as Seo Yul, the stoic rescue supervisor, watches on, ignoring the noise to focus on the mission ahead, while his team bickers about the unfair burden they carry. Because they're always the ones cleaning up the mess, but Seo Yul knows exactly what their role entails. Within the Administration Bureau, a mid-level powerhouse, split into 3 distinct departments for maximum efficiency, where rescue teams dive into hell to save lives, and as the energy shifts, a dark power awakens. With his eyes glowing, he taps into a hidden skill, marking the ground as a true seeker, before the team stands ready before the burning portal. Clapping his hands to snap everyone into lethal focus, he leads the charge into the gate to save them all. A smug executive interrupts their urgent mission, but Seo Yul is not having any of his nonsense, calling out Baek Jun Hwan for his shady guild, exposing the monster who profits from death, sacrificing innocent lives just to line his pockets. Yet the team pushes past his pathetic posturing, ignoring his fake offer of support, because they know exactly who caused this disaster. Shutting him down with cold, hard professionalism, as the team steps into the chaotic gate, leaving the corrupt executive seething in their wake, where the rescue team enters a rain-slicked nightmare, finding survivors clinging to life by a thread, while terrifying beasts loom over the dying victims, and the girl's eyes widen in absolute terror as a massive claw descends to end her. She braces for the final fatal blow, but Seo Yul strikes with blinding electric speed, shattering the creature's dark energy with his spear, reaching out to ensure the survivor is safe. With the survivor secured, Seo Yul signals the team, but his squad is already screaming for a way out, as a relentless wave of ghouls cuts off their path, forcing Seo Yul to tap into his hidden potential, activating a high-level skill to map the dungeon's layout, sensing the shifting architecture through the vibrations of sound, pinpointing a secret passage through the stone walls, where a glowing exit portal pulses with desperate energy, and he commands his team to move before they are swarmed, earning total trust from his battle-hardened squad members, who scoop up the survivor and prepare to bolt, sprinting through the dark as the monsters close in, while the rescued girl questions if they are actually safe. But the team knows their seeker is a hidden beast, possessing power that far exceeds his official rank, yet the ghouls are relentless and hungry for blood, forcing Seo Yul to unleash a devastating shockwave, as the team panics about their dwindling odds of survival, with more shadows emerging from the depths of the gate, and his allies finally unleash their own hidden trump cards. Seo Yul shields the survivor with a blade, slicing through a ghoul while tracking the exit, but those monsters are already blocking their only path, and with a necromancer pulling the strings, these beasts are far more dangerous than simple mindless drones. As a massive glowing magic circle erupts from the floor, trapping the entire squad in the dungeon boss's domain, leaving the team stunned as they realize the trap, because this is not just raw strength, it is pure magic, forcing them to scramble away from the deadly light, while a hidden hand manipulates the energy from afar, pinning the squad down with an overwhelming, crushing weight. So Lee Han screams for Seo Yul to abandon him, taking a brutal hit that sends him reeling back. But Seo Yul refuses to leave his man behind, diving into the center of the circle to intervene, even as the system restricts his movement and speed, promising to pull his teammate out of the fire, though Lee Han desperately warns him to stay away, knowing that if they do not escape now, it is game over. Seo Yul's face hardens as he stares down the threat, gritting his teeth while the situation spirals into chaos, apologizing to his squad before making a reckless move. But he snaps back, refusing to be written off as dead, standing alone inside the boss's glowing, lethal magic circle, while he calls out the mastermind pulling the strings, locking eyes with the terrifying entity known as Caracal, a dungeon boss radiating pure unadulterated malice, who mocks Seo Yul for somehow navigating the shifting temple. Yet our guy keeps his cool, baiting the monster with secrets, so the boss decides to just turn him into a ghoul. Lunging forward with a desperate, high-stakes gambit, channeling raw energy directly into his own trembling hand, as the dark magic begins to burn through his armor, triggering a system alert that his vitality is plummeting, screaming in agony as the curse tears through his body, questioning if his sacrifice was just a pointless bluff, while reflecting on the greedy hunters who value gold over lives, knowing that even in this twisted, broken world, he remains the only hero who actually gives a damn, comforting the survivor with a heavy heart. Seo Yul knows he can't save everyone, but he's determined to be the shield they need, as his system screams that death is not an option, triggering a massive surge of energy through the ruins, while he desperately scans the ancient chamber for any edge, hunting for even the smallest chance to turn the tide, until his eyes lock onto a mysterious, pulsing monument, radiating a power that defies all logic, revealing a secret path to a hidden class that could change everything if he dares to claim it, while the enemy mocks his struggle from the shadows, sending waves of monsters to finish the job, trapping him in a circle of absolute slaughter, as the system offers him a dangerous, game-changing evolution, forcing a split-second decision that could cost his life, while the very ground beneath him begins to shatter. And he fights back with everything he has left, knowing this gamble is his only way out. He screams his final answer into the void: accept. This system notification blares confirming his class advancement quest as the tutorial sequence initiates with a terrifying hum, leaving Seo Yul stranded in a shifting digital void where the very architecture of reality begins to fold, while the dungeon boss Caracal watches in pure confusion, wondering where his prey vanished into the ether. But Seo Yul remains calm, checking his updated status, seeing his stats locked while his old class vanishes, forcing him to realize he has been completely reawakened. And as the truth sinks in, he identifies the location, standing deep within the heart of the tutorial area, where a new high-stakes objective flashes before his eyes, demanding he hunt 20 ghouls to claim his evolution. So he questions the mechanics of this mysterious map until a holographic interface projects into the air, revealing a complex, glowing labyrinth that he must master, where his own position is marked by a pulsing green light, while the red dots represent the monsters he must eliminate, giving him a clear, lethal path to complete the mission. So he prepares to dominate this game and claim his power, taking a deep breath to steady his nerves. Seo Yul locks in, ready to conquer this digital hell, stepping into the shadows where the real hunt begins, as a monstrous ghoul lunges with hunger in its eyes. But he counters with a lethal strike, shattering its guard, while the system pings, confirming his rapid level-up progress, leaving him focused on the 4 remaining targets ahead, as he scavenges a blade from the fallen beast, activating his map skills to track every hidden movement and cutting down another ghoul with electric, precise speed, knowing he has plenty of time to finish the job, while he stays hyper-aware of the ticking clock above. Until a massive, towering threat emerges to block his path, moving with a singular, terrifying purpose unlike the others, forcing Seo Yul to calculate the risk of engagement, because he needs to clear the fodder to survive, locking his gaze onto the boss with cold determination, as the creature looms over him ready to strike, mocking his arrival while Seo Yul readies his blade, and the final, brutal clash of the dungeon begins. Seo Yul glares at the enemy, calling him a sneaky bastard for bringing a whole pack of monsters, realizing his split-second map oversight just backfired hard, forcing him to pivot his strategy immediately because handling more than 2 ghouls is a death sentence, yet the tactical board shows he is completely checkmated, trapped by the system while the beasts close in, making him question if his D-rank limit is finally here. But he refuses to accept this rigged tutorial outcome, screaming at the system to give him a fighting chance. Until his hidden skills finally trigger in the heat, daring the monsters to come and kill him, unlocking a secret link between his senses and the map, revealing a game-changing maneuver to manipulate the dungeon, granting him the ability to use a spin block, which he activates with intense focused precision, confirming he can now rotate the very walls around him, leaving him stunned as the architecture shifts to his will, spinning the labyrinth to crush his foes in real time. And Seo Yul realizes he's finally rewriting the rules. Monsters lunge from the shadows, hungry for blood. But Seo Yul's new map interface highlights their weaknesses, turning the tide as he strikes with lethal precision, leaving the beasts reeling from his sudden, overwhelming power. Realizing he finally understands how to wield this ability, and with a cocky grin, he knows the hunt is over, slicing through the air as he targets the next wave. While the dungeon's energy pulses in rhythm with his blade, closing the distance before the ghouls can even react, channeling pure electricity to fry his enemies on contact, as he tears through their defenses like wet paper, watching them disintegrate into nothingness under his relentless assault, while he dashes forward to maintain his momentum, swinging his glowing weapon to clear the path ahead, until the final, massive ghoul stands in his way. Waiting for the perfect moment to end this nightmare, he launches himself into the air with explosive speed, soaring above the beast to deliver a crushing blow, screaming that this is the end for the monster. As he shatters the creature into 1,000 pieces, Seo Yul channels raw, crackling energy into his palm, silencing the monster with a cold, final warning, as a blinding flash of light erupts from his hand, tearing through the beast with absolute destructive force. Proving he did not come this far just to perish, while the system registers his monumental, game-changing victory, confirming his new class as the legendary Labyrinth designer and offering him a quick exit to safety. But back in the real world, his team is panicking, desperate to charge back into the danger to save him, wondering how they could possibly find their missing leader, until Seo Yul casually strolls out, snacking on ice cream, asking why everyone looks so stressed and ready to fight, leaving his squad completely stunned by his sudden, calm return, as he brushes off the chaos like it was nothing, walking through the city while testing his new broken ability, manifesting a glowing, swirling sphere of pure trapped space, which he realizes can imprison any target in a labyrinth, though he notes that boss-level enemies might just get stronger, and since the sphere is invisible, he's basically untouchable. Seo Yul studies his new system interface, realizing that to truly evolve he must pack his personal labyrinth with deadlier monsters, but he's interrupted by a familiar face asking if he wants some apples, completely oblivious to this fact that he's currently plotting global chaos, yet he accepts the gift with a polite smile, making small talk while walking through the city, until a sudden frantic cry for help echoes, cutting their peaceful stroll short as he realizes a massive, uncontrolled gate has just ripped open, leaving a terrified civilian begging for her daughter, who is trapped inside a nearby hotel room, and Seo Yul instantly identifies the lethal energy, of a full-blown dungeon break unfolding in real time, so he abruptly ends the conversation with his friend, declaring he has urgent rescue department business, while police scramble to contain the growing panic, trying to stop him from rushing into death, but he flashes his official badge and goes in. Standing his ground against the frantic officer, Seo Yul brushes off the desperate warning, knowing a pack of red goblins is hunting inside, so he demands entry to save the trapped child, ignoring the terrified mother's pleas as he steps forward, realizing the local guild abandoned this gate for profit. But he's not walking into this slaughter alone, pushing through the hotel doors with cold intent, disgusted by how these greedy guilds ignore low-rank lives. Causing the exact kind of tragedy he's here to stop, until his system pings, triggering a lethal sixth sense, and he calls out the goblins hiding in the dark, as the monsters lunge from the shadows to kill, but he just smirks, ready to teach them a lesson, channeling his new power to generate a swirling sphere, which rips through the air with a terrifying hum, catching the confused goblins in a sudden, violent pull, as he traps the entire pack within his void, sealing their fate with a flick of his wrist, proving that the old, weak version of him is dead. These red goblins are hunting in a pack, but Seo Yul is the master of this labyrinth, and he knows exactly how these creatures operate, moving with a singular hive-minded focus on their prey, yet they have no idea what's coming for them, because they're about to learn that he hunts smarter, luring them into a trap with cold, calculated precision, as he manifests his void to rewrite their reality, crushing their formation with a flick of his wrist and slamming them against the walls of his domain, leaving the monsters completely helpless in his grasp, while he mocks their pathetic, desperate attempts at resistance, watching the goblin count rise as he clears the floor, daring them to keep trying their little games, because inside his personal labyrinth he is the law, and he's already decided that they are the ones being hunted. Clearing the 17th floor with terrifying, effortless speed, until he reaches the room where the child is hidden, finding a terrified girl trembling in the dark, and telling her that the nightmare is finally over. Footsteps echo through the dim, blood-stained hallway, as Seo Yul confirms to the rescued girl that he handled the goblins, casually admitting that luring them into his trap was the perfect play, because those monsters were sniffing out humans with their heightened senses. And if he had not moved with such lethal efficiency, the child would be gone. But a sudden system notification stops him in his tracks, warning that half of his labyrinth's guardians have been wiped out, so he checks the 17th floor where the chaos is unfolding, telling the girl to take the elevator to safety while he handles the rest, and with a calm wave he heads back into the heart of the danger, realizing a red goblin king is the one causing all this trouble. As he watches the beast tear through his own summoned ghouls, wondering if he should intervene before his entire force is decimated, but deciding he needs to test his own limits against this threat, he steps through a shimmering portal directly into the fray, stunned by the sheer destruction the king has already caused, seeing his once powerful minions shattered into useless pieces, so he warns the king to stop messing with his property. And with a flick of his wrist he shifts the dungeon walls, preparing to crush the massive invader with his absolute authority. Seo Yul locks eyes with the beast, daring it to charge, but the Red Goblin King screams in rage, swinging a massive blade that cuts through the air, yet our guy does not even blink as he sidesteps, weaving through the lethal strikes with absolute calm precision, feeling his body surge with a newfound electric lightness. As the system confirms his evolution into a labyrinth designer, realizing he no longer needs to rely on summoned ghouls, because he's ready to dismantle this boss all by himself, baiting the king into a reckless, wide-swinging attack, before slamming a concentrated blast of energy into its chest, forcing the monster to recoil as its guard crumbles, while Seo Yul follows up with a lightning-fast strike, sending the massive creature flying across the stone floor, landing perfectly as he prepares to finish the job, mocking the king for its pathetic, clumsy attempt at violence, asking if that was really all the strength it had, while he shifts the room's layout to trap his prey, eager to test his most broken ability on this boss, and reminding the king that he's a high-value investment. This Red Goblin King roars, demanding a performance, but Seo Yul just stares back, unbothered and cold, asking the beast if it's actually scared of him, before the monster lunges with a desperate, lethal swing. Yet our guy stands his ground, unfazed by the threat, calmly watching as the king commits to its own demise, while the beast charges forward, blinded by pure, unadulterated rage, and Seo Yul triggers a brutal, hidden repulsion trap, pinning the massive creature against the cold stone walls, whispering a final, chilling goodbye to his trapped prey, as the ceiling spikes descend to finish the job, leaving the room filled with the hum of death, while our hero stands tall, surveying his handiwork, checking his interface to confirm the gold was worth it, knowing the efficiency of his labyrinth is absolutely guaranteed, as the system pings, leveling him up for the kill, and he strolls out of the dungeon looking exhausted, only to be swarmed by his frantic, shouting team, who demand to know why he went in alone, but he just plays dumb, acting like he forgot everything. This team is grilling Seo Yul about the missing goblins, but a mysterious suit interrupts their heated interrogation, introducing himself as the head of the powerful Hanel Guild, and Seo Yul gives him the green light to talk, while the suit offers a polite, calculated thank you, before leaning in to drop a heavy backroom request, asking him to keep his mouth shut about the incident, because the guild is terrified of bad press and panic, offering a massive bribe to keep the secret buried. And Seo Yul realizes exactly how deep the corruption goes, knowing that while the bureau is weak, these guilds hold all the power, manipulating public trust to keep their reputations spotless. Which makes his blood boil, but he keeps his cool, playing along with the suit's desperate, shady deal, acting like he's totally fine with letting it slide. But he's already planning to flip the script on them, grabbing the guy by the collar to change the terms. Demanding a staggering 100 billion won for his silence. Watching the suit's confidence shatter into pure unadulterated shock as he asks if the guild can actually afford his price. Seo Yul enjoys his well-earned break in the park, sipping coffee while his secret status remains under wraps, relishing the 2 days off he squeezed from the guild after shaking them down for a massive payout, though his confused colleagues are starting to get suspicious. He knows that if his true power leaks, it's game over, so he focuses on optimizing his personal labyrinth instead, where the repair costs are draining his hard-earned gold, hitting his wallet for over 5 million won, but he decides the investment is worth the long-term gain, until a persistent call interrupts his peaceful afternoon, and he realizes it's a contact from the surveillance department, demanding his help despite his clearly stated vacation time. While the caller smirks, knowing exactly how to push his buttons, as Lee Jianghai tries to rope him into another job, expecting him to fold under the pressure of her request, but he cuts the line, leaving her stunned and silent, choosing to save his gold by skipping the monster respawns because he'd rather handle the threats personally than pay up, as he prepares to dive back into the fray himself. Seo Yul snaps at the persistent caller, but she drops a name that freezes his blood. Revealing the legendary Kang T-san is finally on the move, and he knows he needs to meet this powerhouse immediately, tracking the massive energy signature to a local park, where the air itself feels heavy with hidden pressure. Watching an old man dominate a game of Jangi, while Seo Yul approaches, sensing the true danger nearby, locking eyes with the man radiating pure lethal power, seeing that dark red aura that marks a true monster, wondering if this unassuming man is actually the legend. As the stranger calls him out to test his skills, challenging him to find the winning move on the board, so he points out the chariot, shifting the game's flow, triggering his sixth sense as the tension spikes, feeling a sudden, violent surge of energy rip through, shattering the wooden board into splinters with a single strike, leaving the bystanders stunned as the game pieces explode, while he stands his ground against the man's hidden intent. Confirming that the legend is exactly as dangerous as rumored. Meet the Elite, one of only 5 S-rank hunters in Korea, a living legend who turns anything he touches into a weapon, but he's absolutely fed up with the amateurish backseat driving, and he calls out to Seo Yul with a sharp, commanding tone, while the local authorities scramble to keep up with his presence, demanding to know if this kid is actually with the surveillance team. Yet Seo Yul just flashes a grin, claiming he's only a simple rescue seeker, though the veteran is not buying it, mocking his arrogant, guide-like moves, warning that his talent is a curse if he does not watch his mouth. But the tension breaks when a frantic contact finally tracks them down, ordering everyone to return to the trainees before things get messy, while she wonders how on earth he found someone the agency could not, so Seo Yul just gives a thumbs up, acting like it's no big deal. And the legend is not letting him walk away from this confrontation yet, telling the brat that he's coming along to see what the hype is about, as they head toward the massive guild tower to settle the score, because the old master knows that every hunter has a hard limit, and he's convinced that a low-rank scrub can never truly break his chains, but he's about to learn that the system does not account for pure skill, as he realizes that true mastery is the only way to transcend the numbers. This legendary master brandishes his glowing blade, mocking the bureau hunters for their pathetic incompetence, while Seo Yul just wants to escape this lecture, but the star trainee interrupts to boast about his progress, as the crowd whispers about the master's elite B-rank status, and the old man acknowledges the trainee's potential with a nod, before shifting his gaze to drop a heavy question, asking what it truly takes to wield a blade, so the trainee shouts about raw strength and skill. Yet the master remains silent, unimpressed by the answer, turning his sharp, piercing eyes toward our guy, who calmly replies that it's all about the sheer will, leaving the entire room buzzing with confused, heated murmurs, as the master questions if he's really that confident, and Seo Yul doubles down, proving he's no ordinary scrub, which makes the old veteran sneer at his blatant arrogance, but surprisingly he admits that the kid is actually right, leaving everyone stunned as he offers a rare, begrudging validation, while a cold, knowing smirk spreads across Seo Yul's face, and the trainee loses his mind at the unfair outcome. Seo Yul stares down the master, thinking he's acting like a petulant child, but the legend has decided to offer them both a brutal test of worth, and while the other guy jumps at the chance, our boy remains skeptical about becoming a mere disciple, questioning if the old man is really serious about this. Yet the sheer prestige of an S-rank mentor hits, realizing this is his golden ticket to the top, so the master mocks his hesitation, calling him a brat, while Seo Yul finally steps up to the plate, clenching his fists with a cold, calculated hunger for power, declaring he's ready to take whatever the old man dishes, as they enter a chamber where the real test begins, tasked with shattering a massive, glowing ether stone to prove who truly deserves the title of the master's chosen successor. Knowing this rare stone is packed with volatile, ancient energy, a relic that only the strongest awakeners can even scratch, but Seo Yul does not care about the odds or rules, ignoring the roaring crowd to focus on his own ambition, because he's going to crush this test and claim victory. This master promises to pass down his lethal techniques, warning that any lack of focus means instant failure, and with a cold stare, he initiates the brutal training, unleashing a torrent of red energy that engulfs the room, while the system pings confirming a legendary aura is present, leaving our guy gasping for air under the crushing weight. But just as his consciousness fades, a vision manifests, revealing a glowing spear floating in a tranquil silent lake, pulsing with an ancient divine power that calls to him, and the system rewards his resilience with a massive skill upgrade, while the master watches, clearly impressed by their hidden potential, telling the two trainees they've earned the right to stay, though he notes that most people usually collapse from the strain, before he turns his gaze to start the real competition, demanding to see which one of them will prove their worth, as the rival grips his weapon with a desperate, shaky hand, channeling raw energy into a barrier that crackles with heat, threatening to crush our boy and break his spirit entirely. But Seo Yul just laughs, mocking the guy's pathetic, empty words. While the rival seethes, convinced this D-rank is just a fraud, Seo Yul channels his raw, unbridled intensity, shattering the reinforced ether stone with a single strike, leaving the onlookers stunned by his overwhelming hidden potential, while the master acknowledges his mastery of ancient techniques. As the rival steps up, still clinging to his pride, trying to intimidate our boy with a pathetic power play, but Seo Yul shuts him down with a cold, sharp retort, forcing the master to finally call for the real test. And though the rival has more raw, brute force, this challenge demands a deeper, more profound answer, confirming that the veteran respects the kid's unique perspective, because Seo Yul understands the true weight of a weapon, diving deep into the core of his own motivation, recalling the brutal battles that forged his iron resolve, where he realizes his path is already set in stone, driven by the memory of the one who saved him, wanting to pass that same hope to those suffering, which is why he joined the Bureau to protect others, pushing himself to transcend his current limited strength, as he unleashes the devastating Dragon Flame Heartpiercer. This crowd gasps as the impossible happens, watching the legendary master lock eyes with Seo Yul, who is completely blindsided by the sudden, heavy offer, stammering a quick apology while clutching his weapon, but he quickly pivots, asking if he can take the spot. As the veteran drops a truth bomb about true power, officially naming the kid as his personal disciple, and our guy just flashes a grin of pure victory, while the surrounding trainees seethe with absolute jealousy. But the scene shifts to a dark, brutal alleyway, where a group of thugs has cornered a helpless girl, mocking her for being too nosy for her own good, as they twist the knife, asking if she really wanted to help, while reminding her that messing with Jinty is a death sentence. And the leader sneers with a look of pure malice, as she glares back, refusing to break despite the pain, while he taunts her about being completely alone, revealing her friend is already broken in a hospital bed, and her eyes burn with a silent, dangerous promise, while the thug just laughs at her pathetic final defiance. Seo Yul delivers a cold, brutal strike, mocking the fallen as the legendary master arrives, greeting the B-rank hunter with a chilling, sharp gaze, while ordering his goons to keep the girl trapped, before demanding that Seo Yul follow him immediately, leading the way to a secluded, desolate location, where the atmosphere crackles with raw, lethal energy, looming over the city like a silent, ticking bomb, as the master grants him the freedom to choose, letting our boy pick the weapon that suits him, and he selects the legendary spear Loga to evolve, while questioning why the Bureau is so incredibly slow. But he's suddenly interrupted by a frantic, desperate contact, who begs the guards to let him inside the tower, screaming that his urgent calls are being completely ignored, until he finally locks eyes with our guy, shouting his name with a voice full of terror, clutching his clothes while gasping out the horrific news that Yonhee has been dragged into the deadly yellow belt, and Seo Yul's expression shifts into pure, terrifying rage. Seo Yul's eyes burn with pure, unadulterated rage, as they venture deep into the forbidden, misty woods, where a B-rank hunter leads the way for the group, mocking the girl while questioning her combat potential, and he dares her to show that same fire again, while she bites her lip, holding back a scream, until she suddenly lunges, desperate to break free. But the cold-blooded leader just orders his men to grab her, while she bolts, terrified of being forced into a death match, yet a heavy boot slams down, cutting off her escape. And she collapses, gasping as the hunter looms over her, taunting her cries for help in this desolate, empty void, while a lethal blade descends, ready to end the charade. But the hunter pauses, sensing a terrifying presence approaching, as a shockwave of energy tears through the dense canopy, striking down his accomplice in a single, brutal motion, and the hunter screams for his master to flee, while a pair of piercing eyes narrows in the shadows, revealing a swarm of deadly stinghawks descending upon them, as Seo Yul smirks, having orchestrated this entire chaotic trap, grilling the hunter about his shady involvement, while Seo Yul dismisses the guy's petty warnings, keeping his cool as he prepares for the worst, because he's done playing nice with these bureaucrats, stepping into the nightmare known as the Yellow Belt, a restricted hellscape where the rules do not apply, where monsters lurk with a deadly, collective cunning. Though our guy finds them pathetic compared to his power, knowing he has to reach Yonhee before time runs out, as projectiles whistle through the air with lethal intent, forcing him to dodge and weave through the chaos, while a swarm of buzzing horrors descends from above, and the system finally kicks in to generate his weapon, manifesting a swirling vortex of energy in his palm, daring the creatures to bring their entire hive along, as the monsters dive in for a coordinated strike, surrounding him in a desperate, swarming death trap, Yet Seo Yul just smiles, mocking their sheer numbers, because he's ready to turn this ambush into a massacre, and he charges straight into the heart of the swarm. Seo Yul dives headfirst into the buzzing swarm, realizing the situation is spiraling out of control, as the system tracks the rapidly dwindling monster count, knowing that pushing them deeper will collapse the labyrinth, yet he's still outnumbered and needs a massive play. So he decides it's time for a final resort, channeling a swirling vortex of energy between his palms, while he mocks the hive, asking if they enjoy swimming, and unleashes a crushing torrent that obliterates the air, before he delivers the finishing touch with a kick, triggering a massive water charge that floods the zone, as the energy implodes and tears through the swarm, leaving the monsters helpless as they drown in power, while the remaining creatures shriek in total blind confusion. Watching as the flood wipes out their entire formation, until the last of the hive is completely submerged, though our guy sighs, complaining about the cost of repairs, because he hates using such a destructive, messy method, but at least the area has finally gone quiet as he turns to leave, footsteps echoing in the silence. Panic sets in as the group flees, desperate to escape the relentless, swarming insectoid horrors, while the coward screams at the B-rank hunter, blaming him for their terrifying, lost predicament. But the monsters strike with lethal surgical precision, closing in with mandibles dripping in hungry anticipation, as the hunter warns of an even larger swarm, forcing the terrified pair into a cornered dead end, where the coward cruelly uses the girl as bait, and the beast lunges with a flash of steel, narrowly missing them as a shadow intervenes, leaving the survivors stunned by their sudden savior, who reveals his identity with a crackling, energized spear, asking if these are the ones who kidnapped her, while Yonhee gasps in relief at the familiar face, as Seo Yul comforts her with a rare, gentle touch, ignoring the coward who demands an immediate paid escape, pointing his finger while shouting orders at the hunter, though Yonhee begs him to just leave the loser, and Seo Yul turns back with a chilling, final apology. Seo Yul steps in to handle the situation, telling the panicked guy he'll end this quickly, as he slams his spear into the ground, warning that what follows is not for eyes, while he cracks his knuckles with lethal intent, and the arrogant brat starts screaming his pedigree, name-dropping his powerful father to buy his safety, exposing his history of crimes and bought justice, yet he still demands to know what happens next, so Seo Yul delivers a crushing, lightning-fast kick, leaving the spoiled heir gasping in total shock, as he collapses, finally realizing his money is useless, while our guy dares him to try and bribe him, grabbing him by the collar to deliver a lesson, but a sudden blinding strike cuts through the air, as Seo Yul mocks the hunter's failed bug hunt, while a mysterious silver-haired warrior steps into view, and the brat shrieks for his savior to kill them, as the newcomer lunges with a lethal glowing blade, forcing Seo Yul to parry the strike with his spear. Seo Yul grips his spear with lethal intent, asking if they really want to start this war, as he clashes against the silver-haired warrior's blade, while the enemy wonders why a mere bureau hunter is pushing back with such overwhelming raw strength, realizing that if this guy wields a spear, he's a massive threat that needs immediate disposal, so the warrior lunges to close the distance, but Seo Yul catches his wrist with ease, warning that he's forced to throw a punch. And he lands a brutal, face-shattering strike, sending the arrogant B-rank crashing into the dirt, while the coward screams in terror at the sight, wondering if this guy is actually a B-rank, as Seo Yul realizes his training has finally paid off, flashing a cold, confident smirk at his opponent, while the brat tries to attack with a rock, demanding that our guy wipe that look away, but Seo Yul effortlessly sweeps him off his feet, and delivers a final, bone-crushing blow to end it. Seo Yul looms over the broken brat, who shrieks that money should have saved him, but our guy decides such trash should not exist, leaving the coward trembling in absolute pathetic fear, as Seo Yul scoops up the rescued girl and leaves the sniveling heir to the monsters, who emerge from the shadows with hungry eyes, closing in on their prey with lethal intent, while the brat screams for them to back off, until the beasts silence his pathetic final cries. As Seo Yul carries Yonhee safely out of danger, finally closing the book on this dark chapter and reuniting the girl with her grieving family, while the Bureau begins a massive public purge, exposing the corruption that fueled this entire nightmare, forcing the high-ranking officials to resign in disgrace, as the city settles into a tense calm, but a new system prompt flashes for Seo Yul, demanding he hunt the apex of the colony, and the hunt begins for the deadly Queen Hornet. Seo Yul locks onto the memory of that beast, this nightmare that haunts the depths of the Yellow Belt, knowing the Queen Hornet is shielded by an entire hive, but he's already decided that she's his next target, because if the drones can shatter a labyrinth, the Queen is going to be a world-ending threat he must prepare for, so he brushes off his supervisors nagging about the paperwork, keeping his eyes on the prize as he walks out, slamming the office door shut on his mundane life. Because with only 1 month left on the quest clock, he heads straight to the secluded training grounds, where his master is already waiting and unimpressed by his tardiness, ordering him to step inside and begin the grueling process, as Seo Yul realizes he's just been named a direct disciple, though the old man warns that the path ahead is brutal, leading him deep into the heart of their ancient sanctuary, where he meets the senior student who's already mastered the craft, bowing respectfully as he prepares to learn the forbidden arts, while the master reveals the true test of his resolve, presenting the legendary indestructible jawbone of an iron fiend. Seo Yul stares at the artifact, admitting that this relic is the true test of his strength, channeling every ounce of his internal energy as he grips the heavy jawbone with veins popping in exertion, struggling because even with his power it's a beast, yet he refuses to let it remain completely motionless. While onlookers whisper in shock at his raw potential, and the master watches closely, daring him to continue, knowing he's already surpassed the average B-rank hunter, so he pushes his limits to force a shift, leaving the old man genuinely stunned by the progress, as Seo Yul grunts, frustrated that it barely budges, but the master insists this is the only way, declaring that no further training happens until it opens, while a nearby student watches with growing, bitter jealousy. Thinking that Seo Yul only got this far through connections, because he spent 2 years grinding in this association. Yet this newcomer somehow stole the direct disciple spot, feeling the sting of being outclassed by a bureaucrat, and he fumes in the shadows, calling it completely unfair. Seo Yul strolls into the dojo, where a junior trainee greets him with a jab, mocking his early arrival on a day off, while insisting they drop the formal, stiff talk. But Seo Yul just brushes off the cleaning chores, telling the kid to stop acting so subservient, because rank should not dictate who does the work, and he refuses to lord his status over anyone, wanting them all to succeed as a team, though the junior just scoffs, feeling totally annoyed, because Seo Yul has been grinding like a beast, never pulling rank despite his elite disciple status, actually bonding with the others while training hard, pushing himself to the brink with that heavy artifact. Which honestly just makes the junior even saltier. Yet he admits he secretly admires that drive, as the jawbone finally shudders under intense pressure, and the trainee cheers him on to finish it, handing over a water bottle as a peace offering. While Seo Yul warns him not to push too hard, Seo Yul wipes the sweat from his brow, listening as the junior trainee drops the formal act, when a sudden horn-like blast echoes through the air, signaling the Overcross Guild is raiding a nearby dungeon. And Seo Yul realizes they're working at this ungodly hour, as the scene shifts to the dense, quiet forest, where a glowing rift tears open in the trees, and 2 hunters emerge bragging about their record time, having successfully captured a massive steelblood orc, though they laugh about the ethics of monster trafficking, knowing this single catch is worth 12 billion credits, so they consider stripping the beast of its gear, while the captive orc glares with pure murderous rage. But the hunters mock the idea of selling trash, as the orc's teeth grind in a display of hatred, and the hunters grin, oblivious to the coming storm, before they finally exit the rift back into the city, where their team leader asks if they're ready to head home, but Seo Yul declines the invite for a team dinner because he's committed to watching over the trainees today. Chaos erupts as the alarm blares, demanding emergency backup from every single team. Because a 3-star boss monster has broken loose, tearing through the Korean Martial Arts Association, while everyone scrambles to survive the rampaging beast, and innocent lives are caught in the crossfire, as a massive glowing monster looms over the survivors, forcing our battered hero to stand his ground, remembering his days as a naive Overcross recruit, when he thought exploiting others was just strength, until he saw the true, ugly face of greed, realizing he was just a disposable cog. And the cruelty of this world finally broke him, but he refuses to let that darkness win, inspired by the stranger who once saved his life. He vows to protect others and change things, challenging the monster with everything he has left, holding the line while his body screams in agony, buying precious seconds for the people behind him as he prepares to face the Titan head-on. This massive beast slams down with earth-shattering force, but our guy deflects the blow, praising his ally's effort. While the wounded hunter stares in total disbelief, as Seo Yul steps up, crackling with raw, lethal energy, and the system prompt demands a choice to enter the labyrinth, so he dives into the shifting, cold stone corridors, realizing he's lured the monster into a trap, though the beast is relentless, smashing through walls like paper, and Seo Yul wonders if this thing really just fought an entire guild, because the sheer destruction left in its wake is terrifying. Knowing that taking this high-rank monster head-on is basically suicide, so he pulls a glowing, unstable artifact from his gear, tossing the explosive gift right into the monster's path, and screams for an all-out offensive to capitalize, gripping his spear tight to strike the moment it falters, as the beast's red aura flares with pure unbridled rage, and he narrowly dodges a strike that could end him, while the system updates the grim, dwindling ally count. As the monster growls, furious about the damage to its home, forcing Seo Yul to make the dangerous call to summon his trump card. This massive labyrinth boss Giori lunges forward, its glowing eyes locked onto our guy, but Seo Yul is not backing down one bit, ready to exploit the monster's every single weakness. Spotting the perfect opening in its defense, he strikes with everything he's got, causing the beast to roar in pure agony, as its defenses crumble under the relentless assault, leaving the monster wide open for a finisher. While the system confirms the boss is finally defeated, and Seo Yul mocks the dying creature's uselessness, kicking it aside as it loses all value, triggering the hidden mechanisms of the chamber, where a lethal trap of steel spikes activates, piercing the monster as it tries to recover. While our hero keeps the pressure on, demanding one more hit to seal the deal, he delivers a crushing blow to the beast, causing the very ceiling to collapse downward, as the final trap finishes the job perfectly. Blood stains the floor as the boss falls, but Seo Yul is not celebrating just yet, because those traps he laid were his insurance policy, and the system interface flickers with a grim update, warning that the entire labyrinth is on the verge of collapse, which is a massive headache but a necessary sacrifice, so he watches the ground crack open beneath his feet. while a red-hot monster erupts from the debris, letting out a deafening roar that shakes the very foundation, signaling the Steelblood Orc's final desperate stand, as Seo Yul mocks its persistence while opening a rift, dragging the beast into a portal to finish it outside, where the training grounds stand eerily empty and silent, leaving the senior student wondering where Seo Yul vanished, until a sudden surge of energy tears the air apart, and a massive vortex manifests right in the courtyard, leaving the student stunned by the sheer magical pressure, as Seo Yul emerges clashing instantly with the rampaging titan, while the monster swings with enough force to level the building, and our boy parries the strike ready to end this nightmare. Seo Yul gasps, wondering if the monster is finally tiring, but the beast's strikes only grow more lethal, though he grins knowing his training is paying off, pushing his body past the breaking point to survive. Feeling his internal power surge against the crushing weight, as he realizes his physical limits have completely shattered, channeling raw energy into his weapon for the counter. He slams into the titan with a blinding flash, while the monster recoils, spitting blood in pure shock, and Seo Yul laughs, finding this deadly dance exhilarating. He strikes again, forcing the creature onto the defensive, as the beast's eyes widen with newfound primal fear. Watching our boy prepare to dismantle its armor, he blocks a massive blow with sheer, focused intent, while the monster unleashes a final, desperate shockwave, sending Seo Yul flying back into the stone debris. But he recovers instantly, refusing to stay down, mocking the titan for its lack of tactical awareness, as he spots the opening to end this fight and drives his spear home to finish the job. This massive titan looms over our hero, swinging a blade that cleaves the air. But Seo Yul counters with a brutal kick, shouting for his ally to grab a weapon. Yet the beast slams him into the ground, leaving him gasping for air in the dust, though he's already prepared for this exact moment, lunging forward to strike at the monster's core, while the creature's eyes glow with pure malice, and Seo Yul channels his final reserves of energy, ready to make his internal power explode outward, closing the distance as the beast's jaws snap. But he dodges the lethal bite by a hair, screaming for the monster to finally meet its end, as he delivers a strike that sends it flying, landing perfectly to finish the job for good, while the system confirms the demonic dagger is his, and the defeated titan whispers a final cryptic thanks, leaving Seo Yul ready for the next level. As he turns to check on his fallen comrade, Seo Yul reaches out to his fallen ally, telling the battered hunter he's finally awake. While the survivor stares back in total shock, but our boy just tells him to keep resting, because the chaos is finally coming to an end, as the next day brings a media frenzy, with cameras swarming the administration bureau headquarters, and the crowd goes wild as a target appears, because Director Beak of Overcross has finally arrived. Facing a barrage of questions about the monster incident, he steps up to the mic to offer apologies, claiming the beast was just for research purposes, while promising full cooperation with the ongoing investigation. But the spotlight shifts when someone spots Seo Yul, and the reporters demand to know how a D-rank won, so he brushes them off to get back to work, ignoring the bait about the Bureau's own failures. Even as a persistent streamer tries to stir trouble, Seo Yul just laughs off the obvious propaganda, knowing that arguing with a paid shill is a waste. Seo Yul knows the game is rigged, so he steps into the spotlight to drop a bomb, hijacking the live stream to ensure the truth goes viral, because he refuses to let them bury his message, calling out the sellouts for cleaning up the guild's mess, while pointing the finger at the real culprits behind the chaos, leaving the crowd stunned as he turns his gaze directly toward Director Beak to demand an answer. But the old man just stares back with cold, calculated silence, until a goon tries to silence Seo Yul by force, forcing his ally to intervene before things get even uglier. As the higher-ups watch, realizing their pawn has gone rogue, and Department Head O receives the order to end him, with a lethal command to crush the defiant hero, shifting the battlefield into the closed doors of a conference room, where the internal investigation focuses on the viral footage, debating how to spin the narrative against Seo Yul, while his supporters argue that punishment is completely unjustified, exposing the guild's blatant manipulation of the media, because the public is already obsessed with his legend. This department head demands Seo Yul's immediate punishment, sparking a heated clash with the other officials, as tensions boil over behind closed office doors, forcing a superior to step in and silence them, while they analyze the fallout of the recent incident, confirming that Seo Yul's rescue rate is perfect, making him a dangerous asset they cannot easily discard. So the director probes for a way to handle him, sipping his drink while plotting a calculated response, because the Bureau needs to regain its lost control, leading to a tense private meeting in the hallway, where a sharp command echoes through the quiet room, and Seo Yul steps inside, eyes locked on the director, asking why he was summoned to this lion's den, but the boss just gestures for him to sit, claiming there is something vital they must discuss, as a steaming cup of tea is placed down, with Seo Yul playing along, mocking the fake hospitality, while the director hides his true venomous intent and drops the ultimate question about his real rank. Seo Yul does not blink, coolly admitting his true power level is way higher than his official D rank, while the director notes the rumors swirling around him, leaving our guy wondering if he's being baited into a trap. But the veteran politician just keeps sipping his tea, ignoring the warnings he received to stay humble, because the air in the room is suffocatingly tense. Yet the director promises he will not pry into his secrets, claiming the bureau needs his raw strength right now. Before dropping the hammer, he's being exiled to the provinces, where the tall towers of the bureau loom over everything, and the investigation into his actions is finally closed, while a supervisor asks about the mysterious hunter, questioning why the higher-ups are so obsessed with him. Because to them, he's just an irritating bug to crush, so they discuss the exile as a way to humble him. But the conversation shifts when they spot our hero, realizing they've been caught in a very awkward moment, as Seo Yul stares them down with cold, sharp eyes, letting them know he heard every single word they said. This executive drops a bombshell, telling Seo Yul he's being shipped off, but our guy just laughs at the threat, calling the 6-month exile a total joke. While the suits try to keep their composure, acting like this was all part of the plan. So Seo Yul flexes his sudden 2-rank promotion, leaving the higher-ups absolutely stunned by his audacity as he mocks their visible lack of enthusiasm, questioning if these titles are just random handouts, while the executive claims they value his talent, though the air between them crackles with hostility, and a subordinate rushes in to break tension, forcing the executive to regain his cold mask. As they turn to walk away from him, but the boss pauses to offer one warning. Yet Seo Yul knows this exile is their failure, promising he'll dominate regardless of his new location. Watching the two snakes retreat into the shadows, while the subordinate wonders what just happened here. This titan's fist obliterates the ground, sending shockwaves through the entire facility, while the director curses the pests ruining his plans, as Seo Yul stands before the office of Director Park, who sips his tea with a cold, calculating gaze, telling our boy that his exile is just a temporary assignment, promising that delivering results will keep him safe from the sharks. But Seo Yul stares him down, sensing the hidden agenda, and the director notes that something else is clearly on his mind. So Seo Yul asks for one final, personal favor, demanding to be sent somewhere where his strength actually matters, leaving the director stunned by his sheer audacity. As he realizes this kid is truly something else entirely, while the office staff whispers about the sudden, bizarre promotion, wondering how Seo Yul became a senior official overnight, and the section chief acts like he knew it all along, though the team panics about losing their best rescue asset, so they call him to see if he's joining the team dinner, and Seo Yul picks up, cutting straight to the point, as he reveals he's busy finishing some dangerous, unfinished business. Seo Yul stares down the buzzing swarm, confirming his high-stakes extermination quest is active, but he brushes off his allies' frantic call, knowing he's already ahead of the brutal deadline, as the hive churns out endless insectoid soldiers, yet he remains focused on the ultimate prize, launching himself into the heart of the chaos, because only the queen matters in this fight, while razor-sharp stingers rain down like lethal hail, forcing him to deflect the onslaught with ease. Though he's shocked by their advanced tactical evolution, realizing these specialized units are built for war, and he questions if they were prepped for him, knowing he'll be swamped if he does not act, so he opens a spatial rift to reposition, catching the swarm off guard with his sudden movement, while he prepares to use the environment itself, exploiting the gravity shift to reach the hive, as the queen looms ready for the final, brutal clash that will decide the colony's fate. Seo Yul dances through the swarm, noticing their movement patterns have shifted, realizing they're avoiding his gravity sphere, and the queen is watching him closely, so he mocks her for being scared, while he executes his own calculated plan. Knowing the labyrinth boss's death prevents respawns, he prepares to clear the remaining pests, triggering the system to enter the labyrinth, where he slashes through the insected line, forcing his way toward the final objective. As he aims to finish this efficiently, channeling raw power into his next step, he launches himself deep into the abyss, shouting for the sphere to activate now, creating a massive explosion of pure force, landing with lethal intent on the ground. He demands the queen stop hiding away, finally coming face to face with the monster, and the queen scepter reveals her true form. Seo Yul freezes as the air shifts, sensing the queen's pheromones spiking in intensity. While he braces for a massive incoming strike, and his sixth sense screams a desperate warning, realizing she was not summoning minions but a weapon, this lethal high-speed predator known as Winglash, proving she's been holding back this entire time. But Seo Yul spots the tactical opening he needs, knowing that once this beast falls, she's defenseless, so he prepares to counter the monster's assault, launching his gravity sphere to pin it down, aiming to capture the queen in one move. Yet the creature reacts with terrifying, raw speed, slamming into him with enough force to shatter everything in their immediate chaotic vicinity, as the beast pins him down with lethal intent, and Seo Yul realizes he's dealing with a monster that actually severed its own limb to survive, showing off terrifying power that catches him off guard, while the queen looms over him ready to finish. Seo Yul is not playing around anymore, warning the swarm that their pathetic struggle is completely futile, as he unleashes a gravity-warping shockwave that tears through the insectoid ranks like paper, mocking the queen for thinking she could trap him. In a labyrinth he's already turned into his own playground, while he casually dismantles her defenses, admitting he's the weirdo for talking to monsters, before pinpointing the exact nodes to trigger a trap, and suddenly the ceiling erupts with steel rain, shredding the minions while he watches with cold amusement, noting how Winglash is fast but ultimately predictable, so he baits the beast into a crossfire, watching it get absolutely decimated by its own environment, as he reminds the queen that her efforts are wasted, since he's already turned her lair into a death trap, and with her ultimate weapon now reduced to scrap. He steps forward, ready to end this one-on-one, channeling crackling energy into a lethal focus strike. Because even her impenetrable armor will not save her now. Seo Yul realizes her armor is too thick, so he shifts his stance to find a weakness, planning to bypass her defenses with surgical precision. But the queen unleashes a massive, glowing strike, forcing him to parry with everything he's got as he maneuvers through the chaos with lethal intent. Knowing this fight is going to be a grind, because he refuses to wait out the 3-day deadline, and leaving now would just make him look weak. So he sets a trap to blast her open, detonating the area with a massive, crushing force. That sends the monster reeling back in pain, while he ignites his blade with searing energy, ready to trade weapon durability for pure destruction, because he's been waiting to test this ultimate technique, and he's going to unleash it all on her, burning through her defenses with a blinding golden strike that tears through her core like a hot knife. As the Red Lotus technique incinerates the queen completely, finally securing the quest completion in a blaze of glory, Seo Yul gasps for air as the battlefield cools, staring at his bloodied glove with a grim realization. Admitting he saved countless lives throughout this hellish ordeal, yet he knows he was just a weakling against true monsters, clenching his fist as that bitter truth burns deep, swearing he is absolutely done with running away forever. While the system pings, dumping his hard-earned quest rewards, so he pauses to inspect the spoils of war, pulling out a rare dagger that paralyses anything it touches, noting its situational use but eyeing something far more potent, holding the queen's royal jelly, a game-changing one-time power boost. Knowing his mana consumption is spiking with every new trap, he downs the glowing essence without a second of hesitation, feeling his very soul ignite as the energy surges. Watching a violent vortex of blue mana erupt outward, struggling to contain the raw power threatening to tear him, as the liquid fire circulates, pushing his limits to breaking, refusing to let this hard-won opportunity go to waste, he forces his breathing to stabilize and absorb the chi, standing tall as his body undergoes a total evolution. Seo Yul's system pings with a massive notification, confirming his evolution into the 10,000 Souls Peach Blossom core. And he can feel the raw, surging power coursing through him. Knowing this is exactly why he risks everything on these quests. Though the system warns of increased mana sensitivity as a side effect, our boy just shrugs it off, ready for the main event, as he begins to weave the labyrinth monsters into his design, spotting a few remaining red goblins lurking in the shadows, realizing that even with his new strength, he can't do this alone, so he decides it's time to restock his lethal army. Pulling up his interface to manipulate the hive's potential, and the system suggests installing the devastating Lake of Decay, a trap that turns the queen's lair into a graveyard, where every fallen corpse fuels his own growing monsters, so he activates the rift, designating the beehive for the effect, watching as the eggs pulse with newfound, terrifying life, while he grins, wondering which one will become his boss, picking out a massive, glowing egg that towers over the rest. Promising his new creation a steady diet of delicious prey. As he christens his ultimate weapon, Vespa, this system officially registers the labyrinth boss, while Seo Yul unwinds at a local spot, clinking glasses with his ally to celebrate survival, noting how even the cautious Li Jianghai was secretly stressing over his dangerous dispatch, yet he cannot help but joke about her tardiness, revealing he spent his downtime prepping for the next grind. And showing off the results of his recent rank test, which proves he's officially the weirdest guy in their group, but the mood shifts when a sudden arrival interrupts, as every woman in the room turns to stare, leaving his buddy wondering if he got a glow-up, because the air pressure drops the moment she appears, and she greets them with a casual, chilling question. So Seo Yul calls her out for being fashionably late, only to freeze when he notices her strange reaction. Realizing she's completely flustered and bleeding from the nose.